Welcome, movie fans. Thanks for joining us for episode 85 of Reading Between the Reels, the premier podcast of the I Hate Rachel Green Club. If you're a new listener, we're so glad you found us. And if you've been enjoying the show, please tell someone about us. Post on Facebook or X, write a review on your favorite podcast catcher. Just recommend the show to a friend. That'd be great too. I'm Craig Dickinson. I'm joined tonight by Corey Heitschmidt. We're missing a Justin Elton tonight, but he should be back next time. What's up, Corey? How's it going?
Good. How about you? Just meeting up with the I Hate Rachel Green Club. Wasn't just me. We had a club.
That's true. I'm doing good. I enjoyed this movie. I haven't seen this movie in a while. Tonight we're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah, the origins of Brangelina.
The origins. This is when we were blessed with Brangelina for all of our lives.
Yeah, all that they've given us.
Oh man, I tell you what. It was an innocent time back then. And if you could fast forward, nobody saw that this was going to end this way. But yep, here we are, fast forward years later, and it's not worked out for them.
No. Yeah.
But I will tell you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you, I love this movie, though.
Yeah, from 2005. I can't believe it's 18 years old. Part of the reason we're doing this is because there's a reboot on Amazon Prime, and it's just a good time to revisit this film, which I hadn't seen in probably 10 years. So yeah, Corey, why don't you just go ahead and jump in with your overall thoughts as you kind of started on that?
Well, I think here's the thing. This movie, I think, is a great one. This started the Brangelina power couple. That's where we got our term, Brangelina, right? And it's the power couple that we all remember from Hollywood. Their relationship may have crashed and burned, but this film, I think, is a great film. And I got to be honest, there's a chemistry between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in this movie. And I just don't think you can fake that kind of chemistry. And it's apparent they weren't faking that kind of chemistry. I think they really did fall in love. I think that's what makes this movie so good, is that there's definitely two strong characters, two strong Hollywood actors put together. It sets up an electric premise for a movie. It was entertaining. I thought it was charming. I think you look at this pair and they go through every kind of absolutely incredible spy movie, and yet it's also filled with a little bit of essentially charged moments. And I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, I like it a lot too. And you know, I was talking to Justin actually off mic about this, that the director Doug Liman, I think, is the perfect fit for this movie, because I know the way it was promoted was, you know, this is the guy that directed The Bourne Identity, which he did, and that's a great action film. But he's also directed Swingers before this, which is a comedy. And so you have this. He has a really nice touch of levity and action. Also did Edge of Tomorrow, which is another great action film. It also has quite a bit of levity. Yeah, Jumper. He made
that
too,
movie.
Right. So
Jumper was a great movie.
It's got the pedigree.
This guy's got credits
for an action comedy. You know, and that's, you know, you have Vince Vaughn. Speaking of chemistry, yes, the chemistry between Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie is amazing. I think pretty much Brad Pitt and everybody in every movie always has good chemistry. But he and Vince Vaughn together too is just a great pairing. Vince Vaughn, everything he says is funny. It makes me smile. When we get to dialogue, we'll talk about some of that. But so you have that Swingers connection too, where it's just all kind of coalesces into this great mix. I think the movie still holds up, I think, really, really well. Even the tech, even for 18 years old, still looks pretty modern. Like, they pretty much could have ran this right off the shelf. Like tomorrow, I'm like, hey, this is a brand new movie. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, you could have released it at a different day and it would have been, it might have been a different hit. Might have gone different than it did. It was still a box office success. Yeah. By all means. I mean, what did it make? 487 million, had a budget of 110. Yeah, so casting in this movie is great. There's a bunch of really good cast people in this movie, and a few of the girls on Angelina Jolie's teams are kind of before they became real big and famous girls that have been in some major movies since then.
Yeah. Kerry Washington, of course. Let's see, was Jennifer Morrison.
Michelle Monaghan.
Yeah, Michelle Monaghan's in as well. Angela Bassett is in this film. She's the Mr. Smith's boss. She's John's boss, which we don't see. And then of course on the other side you have what's the guy? The voice. He's got such a great voice of.
Keith David.
Yeah,
Keith David. Love him in everything.
So good.
Gosh dang, I've loved him ever since he was in Emilio Estevez, Charlie Sheen, Men at Work. I loved him in that movie.
And he's nice.
He's also he also was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Craig. They Live. He was in that movie.
That's still on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
You won't be.
He's in so many things. He's in Community. You know, he was in Armageddon. We're getting up a little off track, but this is the Keith David Appreciation Podcast. That's what I should have led with. But let's go ahead and jump into cinematography. Corey, what are some things that jumped out to you as far as composition, camera work, colors, any of those things?
The thing about the movie, I think there's some incredible scenes that are really good because the action has to be centered on both of them to not present them in a way that you favor one or the other. You have to see them both together as being equals. And it's hard to pull off with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie being very different typecasts. She is very methodical. You go into the camera and everything for her camera angles and stuff sweeps the background. You see the tech, it's clean, it's nice, it's pretty, her business-like atmosphere. So in all the things that you see for her, you see the background of everything that's going on. With Brad Pitt, it's a little bit more messy. It's a little bit more macho as far as him. And so I think those are just some of the things that stood out to me is that when you show them, they're always quick cuts back and forth between the two in their dialogues. And in doing so, you keep it balanced so that you're not looking and going, she's the great agent and he's a tag along, or he's a great agent and she's a tag along. Like you look and you go, oh my gosh, they're just a power couple together. So I felt like the way they kept them both equal did a really good job. I was impressed with that.
I definitely have some stuff I want to talk about with setting on that too, but that also leads nicely into my first thing that I had for composition. Really, the biggest thing I had for composition was how you have that great two shot. It's at the beginning of the film and it's at the end of the film where you have Brad Pitt on one side of the screen, Angelina Jolie on the other side. One's far left and far right, and they're equals, right? They're balancing that out as they're in therapy, and you have just like the disembodied voice of William Fichtner as the counselor, and it's awkward. It's super awkward, and I love that you don't get to see the counselor. You only get to see the client the whole time.
Yeah,
it's just kind of a fun. It really sets off like we have them on opposing sides. I think that's just kind of really quick and brilliant way just to show the conflict essentially. For that, some other things that you mentioned, like Jane's work environment. And for color, I noticed that it's there's a lot of light blues and greens. It's kind of cold almost. Like she's kind of methodical and there's not a lot of it's very cold is what I got from that she's very businesslike in her place, which kind of lends itself with, like you mentioned, the clutter with John's stuff, and hers is very clean. But I think also the color kind of lends itself to that as well.
Gosh dang it, Craig. You always notice these things, and then I go back and I start looking, just skimming through, and I just, he's
That's
right.
the idea.
I don't catch these things. I don't see these things. Even when I'm looking at them, I get caught up watching this.
Yeah. Some other fun things I saw. There's a when John's doing the poker game, and then he pushes away from the table. There's a dolly zoom, so it zooms in as he's pushing back at the same time. Just a kind of a cool shot. I always loved dolly zooms ever since Jaws is kind of like the definitive one for me.
Man,
Brody in his chair. There's a great bird's eye view shot as Jane descends from the outside of the hotel after killing the arms dealer. See, these are kind of happening almost at exactly the same time because they're both on hits without the other one knowing. You also have some great alternating first person point of views in the desert where she's up on the tower and he's down in the dune buggy. They're both kind of looking through fancy binoculars, those kind of things. And then another thing I really liked, this I think is the last thing I'll mention here, is Uh, the dinner scene where they figure out that the other one knows. It's that real tense scene where they're about to reveal, and it zooms in on their face. It just zooms in closer and closer and closer on their faces to see the realization. It's like it amps the tension up because you're just looking at their faces. It was brilliant.
There's definitely a lot of like, just as I've got it just kind of skimming through while I'm watching here. There's definitely a part where Angelina, they're at that long table and the candles are not in focus leading up to her. You're looking down the length of that table. And it's early on in the film, which I think, is kind of a shot that's intentional to say there's something between them, a big, vast difference between them. And then later at the very end, you find them they're eating dinner just out of the kitchen. Like, they're not eating at a table like that later. I mean, it's just they're having more dinners together. It just shows that there's a distance here that they got to cross. I like it. It's kind of a nice kind of little part between the two. So
yeah, that's a great catch.
I will say that I noticed that some of the camera angles have just a small shake to them. Like they're shoulder mounted guys. They're definitely not still pans on some of them where you definitely have a little bit more movement in the camera.
Yeah, a lot of the action sequences are very much handheld stuff, especially like the fight, the first fight they have after they race home is just really chaotic and jumping all around. There's that too. Of course, the fight at the homemade store, that's just basically chaos. It's just happening all over the place.
The homemade store? Is that you're talking about the Costco store?
Yeah, it's the Costco.
It's the Costco without stores.
Yeah, Costmart and Homemade. Those two stores right next to each other. I love this store. Great stuff. Let's see. Anything else you want to talk about with visuals before we get down to sound? Or are you ready to move to sound?
No, we can go to sound. Visual wise, I like the desert scene, the way they painted that whole part with Brad Pitt, and seeing that they're not just using scopes, they're using some high tech gear in there with the desert scene. He gets out, he's using the bathroom. He does this little shimmy shake that she kind of recognizes, but then you see there's a lot more tech involved here.
Yeah.
And he sees her on some infrared thing. And I like that part. I like that they bring in more spy gear. They bring in some spy gadgets. Her descending after hitting that one guy in that building, that high-rise building early on, she comes and uses her purse as like a rope
that's pretty cool.
Swings down. It was very cool, very spy-like, and exactly kind of what you expect to see in a spy movie, to show that they're not just hitmen. They're actual agencies working here that have some spy gear like Mission Impossible.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and transition with sound. That scene makes me laugh when he pulls up in the dune buggy and he's just blasting poisons, nothing but a good time. It's so great. It just doesn't quite fit, and yet it does. Like, this is an older song for the time. This is a 15-year-old song at the time, but it kind of fits the whole personality he's bringing to the table there. Another thing that kind of fits with it, which the more I watch it, the more I kind of get where they're going. Their neighbors at the Coleman's house, they show up for like their Christmas party or whatever.
Yes.
They're playing Amy Grant's Baby Baby.
Yes.
Which, growing up in a Christian household as a teenager in the 90s, I mean, that song was everywhere. And so it's hilarious just to kind of hear that and to kind of solidify, like, that's who these people are. They're like ultra conservative and their neighbors like psychotic killers.
And here she shows up with fishnet stockings and definitely got noticed.
Yeah, that was pretty great. My favorite one though is we have Air Supply making love out of nothing at all, and then Brad Pitt singing along to it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And it's playing the whole time through the freeway chase. So you have this dichotomy, this totally chaotic freeway chase, and then this mellow love song.
I love that desert scene. Just the part that you were talking about, just bringing that together, is when he fires that missile and it blows up, and then he just looks at it, surprised at what it did. It makes a comment: "You should not be allowed to buy these things." I felt like it was great because it showed he's a little more haphazard. And even though he has this cool gadget that does all these things, he's like, wow, this is quite more powerful than I thought, kind of. And just to show what type of spy he is versus her, they get into a comparison later in the movie where body counts, and
Yeah.
His ego has to get in check there, but it was so good. So good.
Yeah. He's definitely layered. Like he's good at
Yes.
his job. He's excellent at his job, but he's also
Yes.
kind of a goofball.
Yeah.
I did want to point out, for sound effects, I didn't have a ton of stuff. I really like the grappling hook sound. The knives, every time the knife was pulled, I just felt like it was extremely loud.
Yes.
And threatening, which was just crank it up a little bit. And then you have that thing at the end, in the final standoff in the homemade store. The sound kind of drops except for the gunfire. That's like the only, you don't hear the people falling. You don't hear anything other than just the gunfire.
Yeah.
Interesting. But the soundtrack thing, this I thought was interesting because I had to figure out who this actually was because they play this song. It's called Mondo Bondo. They play it several times. It's the first dance in Bogota. It's at the conclusion of the house fight where they refuse to kill each other, and then it's also during the final standoff at the homemade store. And it's got very much a Latin feel to it.
Yeah.
Which fits with Bogota, right? It's kind of that's
Yep.
deep there. But it's Joe Strummer. It's the former frontman of the Clash that's singing this song. Like, okay, it works. But I was like, it's the guy from the Clash. That's interesting. So,
for those of you out there who don't know who the Clash is,
yeah.
Why don't you give us a refresher? I mean,
Rock the Casbah, those guys.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Early 80s.
I just had to know what they were. Yeah,
punk band, yeah, new wave,
Rock
just
the Cash. Yep,
exactly. Sure, don't like it. Rock the Casbah, exactly. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. Take
I thought looking this up, and I didn't know this until I did look that up, but that there were 2 soundtrack albums that were released for this film because there is quite a few. They were trying to make sure that they were not avoiding They were trying to avoid confusion. That the score was released and then the soundtrack. So
yeah.
There's several really good songs in there. And that you talk about that Mondo Bongo being down in Bogota. That whole Bogota scene, I thought was well done. Early on, there's a lot of that's kind of the development of the passion and the chemistry they had. Everything in the houses was all faded paint and all chipped and kind of how you expect to see. And then they go to their house and it's all refined and it's neat.
The color palette changes.
Color palette changed and her curtains are a very big deal. And she's going to keep those curtains, even though he hated them. And it just changed the whole thing. The dynamics were different versus the Bogota scene. So,
yeah. Now, that's interesting that they had 2 soundtracks. I didn't see that. I'm assuming that the one is going to have like generally the pop music, like Express Yourself, Lay Lady Lay, and that kind of stuff. And the other one's probably more just orchestral score, John Powell's score.
Yep.
Who John Powell, of course, did Face Off, did the entire Jason Bourne series. So that, again, that's a fit from Doug Liman. Also did the great, I think, underrated soundtrack for Solo, a Star Wars story. And this one has a lot of Latin feel to it in general. So I guess that Joe Strummer thing fits pretty good with that. I noticed I had to figure out what they were called. Some of the tracks though. The one where when John is running after Jane in the car, where like he accidentally falls through the and shoots.
It's an accident. It was an accident.
Right.
Yep.
That's called Hood Jump, appropriately named. And then the where they dance, the tango is called El Tango de los Asesinos.
Oh,
the tango,
the dance of the assassins.
Yeah, pretty great. So pretty kind of nose, but perfect. Like just super versatile. John Powell. I think he's an underrated composer.
Yeah.
Anything else on sound before we slide down to performances?
No.
I think we would both agree the performances are pretty solid across the board. It knows what movie they're in. That's one thing I like about this movie. It knows what kind of movie it is.
Yes.
And if they're over the top, everyone else is over the top. It fits with that. So let's go to dialogue. Corey, what are some lines of dialogue that you like?
Well, I got to tell you, the curtain scene is absolutely fantastic. And where it's if you don't like them, we'll take them back. And he goes, okay, I don't like them. And she goes, you'll get used to them. Her delivery on that, like you just get chills because you go, yep, that's it. That's how it is right there. Yeah. I laughed at that part. I mean, that was an out loud laugh watching that, even again, all these years. It just is a great chemistry moment. And Angelina Jolie, I'm just going to tell you, she has a way of delivering lines and having a stare in the camera that you just are memorized. She is hypnotizing, absolutely hypnotizing. I think so in this movie. I love her in the movie Salt. And when she delivers lines, it's her dialogue, just a dialogue like that. You'll get used to them. There's a little sass and a little attitude and a little, I'm just going to tell you right now, kind of moment where you go, yep, okay.
Yeah.
It's just great. I think she's an incredible actress in this. But
that's I love that you said that too, because this is a movie that I wish it would come out now, because it's a movie where they are very much equals.
Yeah.
Right. John and Jane Smith are very much equals, and they don't have to put one of them down to make the other one look good. They're just both awesome in different ways. So
yeah,
I love how it starts with. I was just gonna say it's kind of a motif that's repeated multiple times. They even put it up on the screen at one point 5 or 6 years ago. It's like, how long you guys been married? 5, 6 years. Like they can't even agree on that. So like when they do the flashback to Bogota, it says on the screen 5 or 6 years ago.
5 or 6.
It's like, that's a point of contention. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on, John. That's it's probably 6. Let's be honest.
Yeah. A couple nice lines that I like. Angelina Jolie in the middle of that first hit she did in the hotel, where she had to take out that one bad guy selling guns, and she's just took care of him. She's got the bodyguards about to break in, and she looks at her watch and just goes, "Oh, the Colemans." It's such a great, I'm in the middle of this, but I'm also a suburban housewife over here who has to get to a dinner party in the neighborhood. And she's just going from hit to just jumping out of a 25-story building and rappelling down on some purse that whittles away to, the Colemans. I think it's just a great placement. It just shows some of the wittiness that they put in the lines in this movie, because I know it's a action comedy, but you can't just pull off action comedy without being cheesy. You have to really find that balance.
Yeah,
yes.
The action has to be good for it to actually work. You can't just be comedic actors faking being action stars.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find action stars that can actually be funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, having Vince Vaughn helps a lot. So, I mean, initially I was just everything Vince Vaughn wrote. So I started with, "Morning, pal. How you doing? Same old. People need killing."
Vince Vaughn.
And then he closes the door. Like, that's it.
I'm going to tell you, Vince Vaughn played Vince
so
Vaughn in the movie. That's all he played.
Yeah.
Every movie Vince Vaughn is in, he plays fast-talking, quick-speaking Vince Vaughn, who is selling you a car or something. Every line is just a sales job.
And this is Vince Vaughn at like the peak of his powers, right? This is Vince Vaughn, Dodgeball. This is Wedding Crashers. This is that era Vince Vaughn. So yeah, just perfect. So some other things that like to show the relationship between John and Jane that are just super dry. At one point, Jane says, "So what do you want, John?" And he says, "We have an unusual problem, Jane. You obviously want me dead, and I'm less and less concerned with your well-being."
I'm less and less concerned.
Understated. It's just so good.
Reminds me of his other line, "Your aim's as bad as your cooking, sweetheart," and that's saying something.
Yeah.
Like those are they do have a little banter early on when they're against each other.
Yeah. Another one that I really like, and I could really just go on and on, but I'm going to stop with this one where they're kind of revealing what their actual past as they're driving through in that minivan. And Jane says, "My parents died when I was 5. I'm an orphan." He says, "Who was that the kindly fellow who gave you away at a wedding?" She's like, "Paid actor." He's like, I said I saw your dad on Fantasy Island." Like, that just always slayed me.
Yeah.
It's like, they've had that argument forever, and she just like completely gaslit him.
Fantasy Island.
No.
Oh, and you know what? And Brad Pitt delivers some of these things absolutely amazing. He has the power of not just jumping straight into his line, but he has just some little inflections in his voice, or how he delivers that, where he's upset about that because he actually liked her parents.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh,
I can't believe I brought my own parents to my wedding."
Yeah. You know, in front of his own parents, and just delivers that. And then when he falls in the bushes after he shoots the windshield out on her car,
Yeah.
and as he looks at it and he's pausing, he's trying to get up and he's trying to deal with the struggle of getting off this fence and shit, you know, as he's grunting. Brad Pitt delivers things like that in a great way in a movie that doesn't make it acting, but makes you feel like you're in the real scene watching a real story. So,
yeah. I mean, along with that, one of the things I always loved about this movie, and the kind of moving to body language as well, kind of fits together, is when they're getting out of the house in the minivan and they back up super fast and run over the guy, and then he gets out of the car and goes over and kicks him.
Yes.
And then just, you know, efforts get younger every year. But the kick, and just like, you just ran him over. It's just complete.
And the kick was not any macho kick that he did either. Oh,
just frustrated. I mean, he also does a similar thing when he comes out. Dude, you see just from the back when he's like punching the air, and he's just furious. I've done that. I do that all the time now.
You're just like,
so good.
Just my last thing I'd say about his dialogue is the part where he's interrogating the kid. And he says, option A, you talk, we listen, no pain. Option B, you don't talk, I remove your thumbs with pliers, it will hurt. Option C, I like to vary the details a bit, but the punchline is, you die. The delivery, and Brad Pitt just said it. Like, it's just, he's just making the words. He started the sentence, had no idea where he was going, but he's like, I know where it's going to end up. You die.
Yeah, he's so natural.
It's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, this is right in the middle of, I think they'd probably done Ocean's 12 by this point. They did Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12.
Yep.
He's just a smooth talker and very much in charge.
He ends up doing World War Z later. He was great in that one. Up until this movie, this was the highest grossing movie for both of them at that time in their career. That. Yeah.
That's a good pull.
Fun fact.
Let's see. I had the where he kicks the guy. That's awesome. The thing where he does like a hands choking motion to the marriage counselor, what he'd like to do to Jane sometimes. Like that quite a bit. We've all been there. Jane trying to hold the baby. Oh, it's so good.
Awkward.
Just super awkward. And then you see John walks by and sees her doing it, and then his look, he stops, kind of backs up a little bit. Huh. Yeah, just they're not normal people. I wanted to say about costumes, hair, and makeup that it's a little odd to see Angelina Jolie in pearls and an apron.
Yeah.
And then you see her a little bit later in the black leather, and it's like, yeah, no, that's actually more.
That's Angelina.
That's what we're expecting.
I feel like she picked her own costume on that one.
Hey-o.
That's how I feel like she just is. Like that whole thing, I thought she helped design this outfit for this part because in my mind, that's just how you picture Angelina Jolie, that she's that kind of person that's got a little bit more of that to her. She doesn't have the middle of the suburban life, but look to her, but maybe she does.
Yeah. Some other things we've talked about the desert scene quite a bit, but it's a great scene. Brad Pitt's, he's wearing khaki shorts, that Hawaiian shirt, those big old boots. Yeah. Which is fantastic. I really do like, it's just hilarious. The matching black with pink trim, Jesus Rocks track shoots they have, they get from the Colemans.
Yes, Coleman.
And I would be remiss if I didn't, because Justin and I talked about this to make sure. So shout out to Justin, who couldn't be with us tonight. That Benjamin has a Fight Club t-shirt scene where they have him captured. Yeah, which is a 20th Century Fox movie, as is this. So you got a little bit of cross promotion there. Yes, love Fight Club. We did that for the show. Matt and I did that a while back. So.
Fight Club.
Love that.
I've never actually seen that movie.
Oh, Corey, it's fantastic. Highly, highly recommend.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And then we got to talk about it.
I do think also with the costumes is the fact that a lot of the scenes, like Brad Pitt when they fight, he's wearing a suit and he's got a tie and a white shirt, real classic look. And then she's, they're both dressed kind of a little more elegant for that fight scene, and they just duke it out and tear the house apart. She's in a dress, he's in that suit, and they're fighting it up, beating the snot out of each other.
Yeah,
and it turns into a passionate rekindle of the marriage. So
Well, they also suit up in the last fight in Homemade too,
which
they
look so good when they do that.
And then he looks at her because she comes out in a suit, and he's thinking she was going to be like wearing a dress or something. That's the way I read that expression. Yeah. It's like, huh. But then it's like those suits just get shredded because they got like tactical gear.
This is such a good movie, and it was so much good chemistry. It crushes my heart they couldn't keep their relationship together, because I could have used a sequel to this movie. I mean, I heard there was a type of movie.
Yeah, they couldn't figure out another way to something interesting, though, and I appreciate that. That don't make a sequel just
don't force
as
it.
A money grab. Could have give them kids or whatever, but
I mean, technically, we're going that way with. This would be a chance to mention the sequel TV show that's coming out.
Sure,
Mr. and Mr. Smith, and I did see they're doing a different premise on that. So rather than two competing spies who ended up married, they are two spies for the same agency who are put in a marriage for a case or whatever they're doing.
I saw that as well.
So it's a different premise, and I'm pretty sure along the way they're going to end up trying to draw more of a love story. But I don't know how much longer you can carry that.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing about this Mr. and Mrs. Smith. This movie is the perfect length of time. This could not have been a season-long, 9-episode series. This couldn't have done that. I think
it's a pretty tight script. People. Yeah. It moves along pretty good. As far as setting the design move down there, I mentioned I want to talk about this earlier. There's kind of these parallel but also opposite locations where they're telling their friends about their new relationship that's fairly early in the film. And that Jane's on the sheer cliff, and John is in the boxing gym, like that filthy boxing gym. And so you have that super very clean, almost very much like her workspace. It's very clean, linear, and all that stuff. And his is just thrown together, just kind of trashy. But he's getting the crap kicked out of him while he's trying to tell Eddie about his wife. I guess they had just gotten married, or they were just about to get married.
Yeah.
I'm getting married. I did say also, and you mentioned this too, about the Smith house. It's very clean and very modern, at least by 2005 standards. Lots of stainless steel, the new curtains, which is hilarious. Contention there. I love John's armory bunker under his garage, and then Jane has one in the oven.
Yeah, and I love that he references it later. They set it up, and it was a very quick. Greg, you taught me this word, this payoff. Everything comes from a payoff. And at the Coleman's party, at the Coleman's party, he makes the comment. Someone says something about where all his money's tied up in, and he goes, "I got all my money buried under the shed." And here we go. We fast forward about 45 seconds, to 2 minutes later. He goes under the garage and opens up the shed, and it's just this entire armory down there. And there's cash everywhere. He's got that cash stacked over there. He grabs some of the cash, puts some back. And so it was great because it showed, no, he really does have everything under the shed.
I totally didn't catch it that way, but that makes total sense now. That's awesome.
Payoff.
He's literally
set it up.
It is literally honest. Under his thing. Yeah. He is.
And I gotta think that's how spies work, Craig, because I thought about it when I watched this part. And he said that, and then he went into the shed. And I gotta think, if you ever had to do a lie detector, if it's at George Costanza's line, it's not a lie if you believe it. And I thought to myself, you know what? There's a nugget of truth in what he said, to where you're not lying if you said all my money's tied up in the shed, underneath the shed. Yeah, he's totally being honest. You could never, you wouldn't even give away your tells, the accidental nods that you have that people think you're lying about. Yeah. See, there you go.
See, payoff. Now you got me thinking that there might be another payoff, because he's talking to Martin, is Coleman's first name apparently, about their golfing tournament, and then later on we see them as moving down to props a little bit, that there's a golf clubs in the back of that minivan, because he just clocks that dude with the driver.
Oh yeah,
just hilarious. So he knew there'd be golf clubs there.
I tell you, see, it's a great movie. They're very attention to detail, stuff like that you catch on to.
I like the scene with the pipe wrenches too, using those as weapons. That's always been fun.
Have you swung a pipe wrench? How much forearm strength Brad Pitt has for that scene?
Those were not small pipe wrenches.
Oh, no, they were not. And I have a pipe wrench in my shed, my own shop, and all my money's tied under that thing too. And under that, and I've had those pipe wrenches. I've tried swinging them before. That is not those things are made out of plastic. There's no way.
Oh,
you
yeah,
could just
I'm sure.
swing those around like that.
He's in good shape, but he was swinging those around pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay. Characters. So obviously we've talked about Brad Pitt as John Smith, Angelina Jolie, Jane Smith, Vince Vaughn as Eddie. Fantastic. Adam Brody, who was a pretty big star at this time. I think he was doing the OC right about this time.
Is he the kid?
the tank.
Yeah.
Benjamin the Tank.
The Tank. Wearing the Fight Club shirt.
Yes, exactly. You mentioned it's. I mean, obviously, Vince Vaughn was a fairly big star at the time. For Jane, though, you've got like we mentioned, Kerry Washington, and I didn't know that their names all were J names, but they are. Kerry Washington is a Jasmine. Jennifer Morrison plays Jade, and then there's another woman, Perry Reeves, as Jessie. So the 3 J's, actually it's 4 if you count.
It's like Men in Black, where they kind of have a pattern in the names like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Michelle Monaghan as Gwen, the computer tech.
For character development, I think you look at Angelina Jolie's team. They're all neat, polished, look like professional in what they're doing as they're ripping through her house and tearing her house apart.
The bear just goes through.
The bear. Oh my gosh!
You can see her face too. She's just like, what?
And when they're all in the room watching, all 3 of them lined up watching the tape from their wedding, and it's a very different feel. Like the whole business aspect of the thing is down and planned and clean and neat. And then you go to Brad Pitt's team. It's Vince Vaughn, who's fast talking. Who doesn't love Vince Vaughn in his prime here? It's Vince Vaughn and this little secretary who's cute as a button, but oh my gosh, and then he works at this architecture firm or whatever, and there's stuff everywhere. It's just messy. It's haphazard, but it's efficient. So it's a great way to kind of establish characters. And then the part that I also like is how they kind of reinvent them a little after they become teammates, after they realize, okay, after their fight where they duke it out and they end it, and then they're back together at the end when he's going down the tunnel and they're talking and getting to know each other about what they're doing now. And, how many people have you killed, and, the body count.
Some of them are 2 at a time.
She's telling him how to read the map, and he's like, there's no turn here. I can't do this turn. Like a little bit of contention there, but it's a different kind of contention now. And it reestablishes the whole character that now they're teammates, now they're buddies, they're partners, and they're married at the same time. So it was good. It was a good way to reinvent those characters and establish who they are.
Yeah, I really like that part a lot, where you see that they've shared experience without having shared the experience. And then they speak the same language, but for like the first time in 5 or 6 years, they're being honest with each other. And it's amazing how much they actually have in common, and that they're able to work together. Like hand signals and all of those things are kind of universal for their world, apparently.
Yeah.
So essentially the hero's journey doesn't fit for this. That's not that kind of movie at all.
No,
so it's fine. But you do have, as you mentioned, there's character development for both of them, which is fine, which is great. It's nice to see that.
It's got to be. There's got to be Is there a formula for a story like this, Craig? I mean, you can't have a hero's journey, but you're going to establish that 2 people who are married and are the best at what they do have to reinvent themselves or discover who each other is, the real you, and then move forward. I don't know.
It's kind of a
movies like this.
Sure, but I mean, it's kind of a circular plot, which I think is what they're establishing with that opening shot, which is the same as the closing shot, where they're in the counselor's office on opposite sides, but it serves a different purpose now, right? Because it's like they went in there, quote unquote, married, and then they're in there now actually married, where they've gone all the way around to where they're supposed to have it, but they had to go on this journey where they had to find that everything was fake, and then they had to make it real, and now they're kind of back again full circle. So
you're right.
Yeah, that's what Yeah, and that's another reason why, like, I don't know why you would do a sequel, because you kind of finished the story, right? You could have had some of the things. I mean, maybe you have they move and their neighbors are Russian agents that are similar. I don't know. There's other things you could do, but I don't know if it would be interesting like this was. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I don't think you could.
Bottle twice.
Yeah.
But as far as world building goes, I think it mentioned before. Like, I think the technology and everything holds up. There's kind of just this. It's our world, but there's kind of this layer underneath, like that their neighbors are completely oblivious to.
Yeah, this movie, you could release this movie in 2023 and we would have thought it was filmed in 2023. Wouldn't think twice about it.
There was nothing in this that I thought, kind of moving down to final thoughts, I guess, that I thought looked dated at all. Like, I just had a great time doing, like, the special effects hold up. It's not overly reliant on CGI. We hadn't gotten to that point in filmmaking yet.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of practical effects, and it's because it's built on the performances, right?
Yep.
And so it's kind of a funny action-filled character piece. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the crap out of it.
I will say this. I think this movie establishes Angelina Jolie as an action star too. I know she had done Tomb Raider.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look up and see when the timelines were on all this, because it cannot be that far after this that she did. Angelina. She did Salt. Have you seen Salt?
I've seen it. I only saw it just the one time, but I've seen it.
Just once. I love that movie. I think Salt is one of the best. And the fact that I've never gotten a sequel on that movie is absolutely crushing to me as well. Because they set it up for a sequel.
Yeah.
Salt came out in 2010.
That's not too much farther after this.
Smith, so 5 years. So, 2005, released 2005. She had done a couple other movies, but really Salt was her next big. Wanted, she had done. Wanted and Salt were two big action movies right there.
Yep.
And Salt does not have as high a rating. It's close to this, but it showed that she is great in these conspiracy movies, agent movies. She could have been great in some of those things.
Yeah, I think both of them are pretty versatile. She's not one that you think of as being funny, but I think she's a good enough actress where she can do levity pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even like the line you mentioned earlier about the curtains, like there's some menace to that, but it's also kind of in a dark, funny way.
Yeah.
In a way that she's doing it. She's got a light enough touch on it.
And I'm going to tell you this. Back then, around that time, I had a crush on Angelina Jolie. I thought...
You and the rest of the world, Corey.
Because here's the thing. I just want someone to look... You look at some of these photos of Brangelina here that are on the internet. It's absolutely disgusting. Now at this time, you just go, oh my gosh, how in the world? But at the time, it was all over the place. And you look at the way she looks at him in all these photos that, are just standing up. Yeah, gosh dang. You just want someone to look at you the way she did at him. And I cannot believe they never made it work.
Yeah. So that reminds me, this is going to go off the trail for just a tiny bit, then we'll wrap up. But I remember right around this time too is Alexander, where she played Alexander's mom. And Val Kilmer played his dad. The lead was Colin Farrell. And I remember Val Kilmer had a line about that, about how attractive she was. He said something along the lines of like a camel like double taked when she walked by. So,
it was.
God bless Val Kilmer. He's amazing.
Ugh.
So let's wrap this up. As we go, we just want to say thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on X and Facebook. Email us at readingbetweenreels@gmail.com or use the SpeakPipe app on our website. If you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend. You can support us by writing a review on your favorite podcast catcher. And our next episode will be a review of Fellowship of the Ring, extended edition, with special guest Andrew Clark. Send us an email or voicemail about your favorite moments from Fellowship of the Ring, and we'll share it on the next episode.